Welcome back. Now that you have Docker set up and Docker is running, let's go to our SmartBrain API project, which I have over here, and build a sample Docker file. And we're using this project because by the end of this section, we're actually going to build a Docker file for this entire project. So to start off, what we need to do is first of all, let's close this server for now. There you go. And what we need to do is to first build an image file that Docker can read. And the way we do that is by creating a new file at the root of our project. So I'm going to say, actually, I'm just going to do it here. I'm going to say touch, and we have to call this Docker file. And this Docker file will be our image. So if I hit enter here, we see that we now have a Docker file in our project. So let's open this up. And this is completely empty right now. And that's fine. Now in here, if you remember, we can include images that I showed you in Docker Hub that other people have written. So for example, we want Node to be running on this project. Let's see our Node version for our SmartBrain app. If I do node-v, I see that it's 8.9.1. All right, let's go to Docker Hub, which I have it up over here, and let's check out Node. And we want to run a version. We see that it has the latest version of version 8, which is fine for us. It's also called Carbon. So if I click here, I see that, oh yeah, that's a Docker file, but I just need the Node Carbon or Node this specific version. For now, we can just say from with capital letters, and we're going to just go ahead and say Node Carbon. That's it. So we're saying just grab the Node Carbon image. And I can put on here the version number and any of these tags that you see that you want for your project. And then finally, I'm going to do another command called CMD. That stands for command. And in here, it's going to be an array of commands that we want to run after we grab the Node version. So all I'm going to say is bin bash. And I'll show you what that does in a second. Now, the first command, as I said before, tells Docker to use the Node image from Docker Hub. Again, the official Docker image repository. And this is what we call a parent image of our image. Now, the CMD or command instruction tells us what to run in the container, which allows us to access its bash profile. Again, something that I'm going to show you and will make more sense later. Now, let's go to our terminal, make sure we save this file, and I can run now the command docker. Again, that comes with the Docker install that we just had. We just say docker build and give it a tag name. So -t is for tag, and we can say whatever you want. We'll say super awesome container. And once I press enter, oh, and here's a little trick. Because we have to tell it what to build, we have to give it a period at the end. So build all and the current directory. It's going to find the Docker file. And there you go. It's running everything. You can see over here, it's doing the from Node Carbon, step 2, the command that we just said. And it says successfully built and successfully tagged the super awesome container. This just created our first Docker image with the tag name using the Docker file that we just currently had. And again, I ran this command from the root directory, which is where our Docker file is located. Now, that took a bit of time. If I run this command again, you see how much faster that was? And that's because instead of downloading Node all over again, like it did the first time around, Docker is going to use the cached image or it remembers this image. So it becomes a lot faster. And now let me clear this. We can do something fun. We can do instead of Docker build now, which we just did, we do Docker run. And Docker run, we have to give it a few parameters, IT, and then the name of our container. So let's say the super awesome container that we created. Whoa, did you just see that? We just ran our Docker container and it took us to our container. Now you see that my terminal is completely different. We're inside the container. Now, why did it do that? Because we just ran our Docker container. And if you remember, our command was to do bin bash. And this command simply says to go into the bash profile, that is the bin bash of our container. And you see over here that we have root at some hash. This is a hash that is generated randomly by Docker to know which container is which. Very cool. But if we did actually install node, then we should be able to have the node command, right? So if I run node-v from our container, look at that. We have the node version, but I see I got 6.14.1. That's not what we expected, because if we look over here, we installed Carbon, and that should be 8.11, but instead we got 6.14, which is Boron. Interesting. Let's change the version number to the actual number. So in our case, let's just say that we want version 8.11, and then let's see what we had here, 0.1. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to exit out of here by just typing exit and rerun our commands. Again, to remember, the first thing we do is we want to build, and let's see what happens here. All right, it's building everything. And now if we run our other command, which is docker run, and let's do node version. All right, we have our node version correct. You always want to check this to make sure whatever you installed is correct, because sometimes you can make mistakes and think you have a certain version, but you don't. So you always want to check your containers to make sure that whatever you have set up is actually on there. But as you can see, everything is running smoothly. We have a machine, a container with node preset up for us. And how simple was that? By the way, just for fun, let me exit out of this again. I'm going to clear. And let's run this command without the -it parameters. And you see that we can't go into the container. And that is because the IT command gives us what we call a TTY environment, or it allows us to enter this Docker container. All right. Now that we've gotten a little bit used to Docker, we have a few more things to learn. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.